5:16, so we are going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Can we please have a roll call?
Mayor Walter.
Here.
Vice Mayor Woolridge.
Here.
Councilmember Hawkins.
He's here.
Councilmember Galeen.
Here.
Councilmember Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Wall.
Here.
Councilmember Larson.
Here.
Madam Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to adjourn to executive session, and then we will come back from the executive session to adjourn and proceed with the regular meeting.
Make a motion to adjourn to executive session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same size? Motion carries. Everybody can hear me? The first is Diane LeSueur from Open Hands Outreach Program.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Your mic work? Yep. Oh, yes, your mic works. My name is Diane LeSueur. I'm the Executive Director for Open Hands Outreach Program. We serve veterans. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, faith-based charity. We've been in existence since 2012. We know there's over 40,000 veterans in this county. Many of them fall below the poverty level. Many of them return home with physical and mental health issues, under or unemployed, leaving them at financial risk that leads them to all types of unstable housing, and many have become homeless. Many need social support, camaraderie between other veterans in order to reintegrate from military to civilian life. That's where Open Hands Outreach comes in. We have established programs that encourage camaraderie between the veterans and strengthen family units. We help with job preparation. We have facilitators that act with our veterans on a volunteer basis, so they have someone local that they can go to and discuss their needs. We have certified resource navigators that are there to help veterans apply for the benefits and services they have earned through the VA and their military service. I want to introduce the volunteers that are with me tonight. We are 100% volunteer. No one is on the payroll at Open Hands Outreach. I have to put my glasses back on. We are a philanthropic venture solely dependent on donations to provide transitional housing and services, programs, Veterans Tuesday coffees for veterans who, through no fault of their own, have issues and need help resolving them. Patrick Gordon is our certified resource navigator. He works as a volunteer veteran navigator mentor with the Pinell County Veterans Court. He also is a certified resource navigator and works in our office here to help veterans apply for the benefits and services they need. He is a veteran, and he comes from a background of corrections. He told me, don't call me a prison guard. He's a correctional officer, retired. Mary Riedling is one of our veterans. She works as a veteran contact for any of the veteran issues in the area. We serve all of Pinell County. We started out in Coolidge, and now we're here. That's why I'm here. Mark Riedling is one of the volunteers. He works at the thrift stores in Coolidge, and Clarence Chappelle is a certified resource navigator. He comes out of 35 years of the banking business and offers, as a volunteer and a certified resource navigator, helps veterans apply for benefits and services, directs them. He does one-on-one budgeting classes so that through all of this, we can help try to meet the needs of veterans. Where we can't provide services, we find the resources to help. One of our veterans, I always like the stories, served in the Navy. In 2013, he had a heart attack away from the VA system and was taken to the nearest hospital. Then he was life-flighted to another hospital in cardiac intensive care. He didn't do real well, and his wife, Cheryl, stayed with him. I have their permission to use their names. She stayed with him until he stabilized, about 6 weeks, and they went, ooh, we gotta let the VA know that we're here. When they called the VA said, you didn't get prior authorization and we're not paying for it. They lost their home, they lost their jobs, and she's a graduate of ASU, and they lived out in the desert for 9 months. I was at a meeting in Casa Grande and mentioned about the Kennedy House, which we had just opened. It wasn't even really ready for anyone to move in. And the Kennedy House is in Coolidge, and it's set up to house up to 4 veterans who are homeless, very low income, are at risk of becoming homeless. We are not HUD housing. We are just supported by individuals and groups. They moved into the Kennedy House, and they lived there about 14 months, got their finances in order. His health never did improve real well. And they moved into stable housing then, and their lives became stable. That's what Open Hands does. We have another young veteran. I had a man said to me, why do veterans need help? They come home from the war. Not watching my time. You have to wave. They come home from the war, and he could not keep a job, and they have 3 children. And he has started, will be starting this Friday, a job. His family, with Clarence help, and with our other resource navigators' help, their families are stable. When families become stable, you know this. Stable families build stronger communities, and we all win, and that's why we're here. Thank you for your time this evening. You'll be seeing more of us, and come visit. We're at 94 Butte Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming and sharing that with the council and the town of Florence and everybody else who's listening. Mrs. Kathy Adams.
Good evening, Mayor Walter, Vice Mayor Woolridge, and council. My name is Kathy Adam. I live at 240 East Ruggles. And I think you might be surprised what you're going to hear from me tonight. You all know me as a staunch advocate for the district. I'm here to speak on the Quinn Building. I saw it was on the agenda.
No, you're fine, I apologize.
I want to say you all have a really difficult job because I normally know where I fall on any matter, and when I pondered on this, I'm really not sure in this case, but I did want to make just a few comments to you and to assure you that I am very interested in what happens here. This has been going on for a long time, as you know. This last iteration, maybe 3 years, just between the town and Mr. Smallage, and I know before that, this building went back and forth between the IDA and the town. It seems to have been born under a dark cloud. When it comes to the adobes on Main Street, especially the commercial buildings, working towards a successful outcome seems to be clear as mud, and I mean that sincerely. It's very difficult. We have had issues with almost every building on Main Street, and they all differ. These adobes seem to attract very strong personalities, and I understand the town has to wrestle with each individual property owner so that all needs are met. What I would just say is, in this environment, it seems like since the Smith building, it feels very adversarial. Maybe for right reasons, maybe that's the way it is, truthfully, because there are real issues here. But what I'd like the council to hear is just to say, if you don't have another plan for this building, we very much would like to see a successful retail store. And my advocacy for Mr. Smallage is I've seen his business in town. I know the traffic he drives to our town of Florence. I see it every day going up and down Main Street between Desert Breeze and the Happy Adobe. That's the type of business I think we want on Main Street. And having lost Conquest Arms, there's a significant reduction of outside traffic to our town. So my advocacy is for a retail operation in that building. I would hate to see, of course, the building torn down. We had discussed before about perhaps a lawyer's office or, a small office, but that's not going to drive traffic to our town. So my plea would be, if there is no other plan, and I really don't know what Mr. Smallage is going to say. I think the town has been extremely patient. I know this has gone on several iterations of 6-month extensions. So I'm not well-versed enough to say who's right or wrong. I am advocating for a successful, vibrant business on Main Street. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe that's what all of us want, is to see some success on Main Street. All right. If there's anybody else in the audience that would like to speak at call to the public, I don't see anybody, so we're closing call to the public. We're going to open up item number 8, which is public hearing and presentations. Item A is the public hearing on a new Series 12 liquor license application received from Jane M. Percoli at the Main Street Vault LLC, located at 270 North Main Street, Florence, Arizona, and council recommendation for approval or disapproval of said license. Ms. Garcia.
Mayor and members of council, the town staff did receive an application on October 17, 2017. We did post the location, located at 270 North Main Street. The posting did stay up for over 20 days. We've received no notifications regarding the application for a license. Just a reminder, the town of Florence, we are a recommending body to the Arizona Department of Liquor License and Control. So tonight what we're doing is we're holding a public hearing. After the public hearing, the council will make a recommendation to the Liquor License Board, and staff is recommending that council make the recommendation for approval. If you have any questions, please let me know. And Ms. Percoli is here if you have any questions of her.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'm going to ask Ms. Percoli, would you like to come up and speak before I open up the public hearing? Okay. Okay, I am opening up the public hearing. I need a motion to open it.
I'll make a motion, we open the public hearing.
Okay. All right, so is there any member of the public that has anything that they would like to say? Any member of the council? I would like to say that I am really thrilled with the new improvements made at the vault and the new menu choices and the new expansions. I'm glad to see that the business is growing. And I don't see how this license would cause any negative implications. With that, I'm going to call the open meeting.
Close the public hearing.
I can't speak tonight. I really apologize. I'm in a fog today. And with that, I need a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the liquor application or send an approval of the liquor application as stated.
Okay, we have a recommendation of approval. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And the motion carries. Thank you. Item B is our Florence lifestyle presentation by Danny Miller and Michelle Cortez. Thank you, ladies, for being here this evening.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us. We are two local moms who happen to be realtors that both live in Florence, and we get asked the question all the time, why do you live in Florence? A lot of people think it's a prison town and don't know what Florence actually has to offer. So we had a little meeting with each other, just kind of trying to come up with some ideas, and it turned into like 5 hours later, and we decided to start what we call Florence Lifestyle. And what it is basically right now we have a Facebook and Instagram, and we are doing promoting of the local businesses, going in and interviewing, blogging, doing different photo albums, just different things to kind of enhance the business that comes into Florence, kind of explain to people why we live here, why they should live here, why they should choose Florence as their place of residence. We work with a lot of out-of-state clients too, so it's just a good opportunity for us to kind of showcase what Florence has to offer and spread the word on the events that we have and that sort of thing. So, what do you think? So you can go to Florence Lifestyle on Facebook or Instagram and like us and basically follow us and find out, what's going on in the town, and hopefully we get more traffic this way and are able to grow the town and, just flourish and kind of show people what is here and why they should come. And if they're not moving here, why they should come visit. So,
I like that.
yeah.
You're really, promoting the town and within the town. I've seen what you guys have been posting, and it's always very positive and upbeat, and it's really highlighting a lot of the business communities and events that we have to offer. So it really jives well with our live, work, and play vision that we've formulated during our strategic planning.
We kind of came up with a little tagline, so it's kind of your key to the go, do, live, and know. So where to go, what to do, who to know, and places to live. So.
And we've made sure part of our platform is to keep it positive. So we're not going to allow any negativity. Unfortunately, no political posts or anything like that. We just want it to be about our businesses, our community, our school district, the families that live here, why they've lived here for, generations, or why they've moved here. I've only been here 3 years, and people still can't figure out why I moved here. So we want people to understand this is more than a prison town. We actually have a lot of cool things. A lot of people don't even know we have a winery and stuff like that. So by promoting those businesses, we'll grow our own business, but also give our kids a great place to grow up.
Excellent. Any members of council? Councilmember Wall?
You two are like a walking chamber of commerce. I would definitely encourage you to join our
We are.
Greater Florence Chamber of Commerce.
I've been a member for 3 years, and she just joined recently, so.
Super, super. So what you have to say, I think, is very positive, and I congratulate you on your new venture and hope you're very successful.
Thank you.
Ditto.
I was going to say the same thing she said, so thank you
Yes.
for everything you guys are doing and keeping it
Thank you.
positive.
I met these ladies Saturday at the event out in Anthem, and they put on a good show. They had a nice table set up, and they were promoting our town. I want to thank them for doing that.
You're welcome.
You're welcome, thank you.
Thank you, and one more time, tell everybody what to follow on Facebook.
Florence Lifestyle.
We
Okay.
have some little.
We have little cards we passed out to the,
Passed out, but if anybody out here would like a card, I have some extras.
Love it, thank you.
you're welcome.
That's cute.
Item C is the Town of Florence Investment Policy Update presentation by PFM Asset Management LLC. Paulina Wu.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. I wanted to introduce Paulina Wu, who's a director with PFM. Back in May of 2017, the town of Florence secured a contract with PFM, and we're pleased to have them come and give a presentation to us because their presentation directly relates to an item later on in the agenda when we're considering some updates to our investment policy. And so I wanted to invite the experts to come and talk to us a little bit why they gave the recommendations that they provided in order to update our policy to benefit return of investment. So I'm going to turn time over to Paulina.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council, thank you so much for having me and PFM out to speak to you. We'd like to thank you again for selecting us as the town's investment manager and have worked with staff to continue to help the program as we develop it, and one of those things is the investment policy. So what we put together is a little bit of an introduction and then an overview of the changes that we're recommending. Please feel free to stop me at any time if you have any questions. I'm happy to pause. There you go. Just to give you a little bit of background, PFM Asset Management has over 40 years of experience in managing public funds specifically. We are also a national firm, but are also locally dedicated. We have myself and my partner, Luke Schneider, who work on the town's account. We manage over $3 billion for public Arizona entities. We are probably the largest government manager outside the state and the state's manager in Arizona. I've worked in the state and with the state for about a decade, and I also live here, as does my partner Luke. We have a strong track record of success with working with public entities because we're very aware that safety is always your number one goal, and that we also are here to serve the public's specific needs in addition to those that are financial. To give you a bit of an overview about our policy review, we wanted to give you the guiding principles that guided us in this review. So first, we wanted to make sure that the policy was updated to comply with state and local laws, and those have changed since the policy was last reviewed a few years ago. Additionally, we wanted it to reflect the state's actual goals and risk tolerances, as it doesn't make sense to have a policy that is very risky or very conservative when that's not really the goal of the program. So we wanted to make sure that those were in line. We made a few housekeeping items, and that's the clarity to make sure that all the policies were very clear as members of the public and yourselves read through it. We wanted to make sure that there was no confusion about what the intent meant in any of the policy. And finally, we wanted to incorporate some of the industry best practices that have continued to evolve. We generally get those from the Government Finance Officers Association. That's the largest industry finance association in the country. They also have a large wing here that's called the GFOAZ. So these are both of their policies to incorporate into your policy as best practices for your management of your program. So those are the principles that guided us in your policy review. The proposed updates under Bullet 2 at a very high level, we revised and restructured to reflect the town's risk tolerances. So there were some mismatches there. So some of those changes are in the policy to reflect the newer updated risk tolerances. Additionally, we added sections to do with custody, best practices, things like that, that had not been in there before. We updated the language to mirror changes to Arizona revised statutes. As you know, those get reviewed and updated periodically, and they needed to be updated in the policy. We added some explicit limitations in the policy with regard to the types of investments, the sectors, and the percentage limitations that were not there before, again, with that goal of clarity and to be very clear what the limits are. And we wanted to incorporate, since the town has hired an investment advisor, an independent investment advisor, some specific investment advisor requirements, so again, that those are very explicit in your policies. Just to remind you, the town's principal objectives in their policy are safety, and that's the preservation of capital. That means the money is there when you want it and need it. Liquidity, making sure that not only is the money there, but it's there in a form that you can use should you need it. And then, of course, return, and that's making sure that you are attaining a market rate of return, that in a 1% environment, you're not making 0.01%. So again, always safety first, and then making sure that you can use and that your money works for you. Please don't be blinded by the amount of text on this page, but we wanted to be, again, very clear about what we were recommending. So we had 3 separate types in this page of revisions. We updated your policy, these sections of the policy, so your objectives, your custody and safekeeping, which is regard to the way the securities are held, in the type of account they're held in, the performance standards, and your reporting requirements. So there are some updated GFOA best practices with regard to those sections, and we added them in specifically. For instance, like in safekeeping and custody, we recommended that you employ a third-party independent safekeeping and custody bank, so that the securities are held in your name and are under this, and the town will have access to them at all times. And we made these guidelines very clear. We restructured some of the portfolio requirements. There is a section in the policy that's dedicated to the types of high-quality fixed income that the town may invest in. And just as a reminder, public finance investments are highly regulated. There's a dedicated section in state code, so you can only invest in very, very high-quality fixed income and money market instruments. So no equities, no crazy commodities. It's a very, very small slice of the investment world, again, because they are public funds. So we wanted to make sure that that was clear, that section, that it matched up with the code, and then it had your parameters in there. So there are a little bit more conservative requirements based on our discussions with staff and where the program was, that we've incorporated and restructured, so it's very clear that it wasn't in the former policy. And finally, we added several sections to the policy to ensure that it's clear, safeguarded, and that the management and what guides the investment program, most of the things that you would need are in this policy. So these were not in the policy before, and these also recommend best practices and reflect what had been implicit with the town, and now they are explicit in the policy. We talked a little bit about those limits that we added. We wanted to show you just a table of what we did for those limitations on the types of investments that you can invest in. So here is a list of the allowable investments, and here is the allocation by sector. So under Arizona State Code, you could invest 100% in 5-year corporate bonds. It's legal, but it's not appropriate for operating funds, because you need those funds to pay for things. So what we aim to do by proposing these policy limits is to make sure that, again, they reflect the type of risk that you want to take, but also the appropriateness of the management of the funds. So here we have additional ratings and sector and issuer limits in the policy that are more conservative than state code, but we think are appropriate. So that concludes my prepared comments about what we're proposing in the new policy. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Councilmember Wall, did you have a question?
I was just curious if you have made any changes to the existing investments based on this new policy.
No, we have not. We wanted to wait until we had until it was the approved official policy. So we have not made any investment movements yet, and we are still getting the custody bank in place.
So do you have recommendations for the mix of sectors that?
We have broad recommendations. The actual recommendations will, again, the market's changing. So what we'll do is hopefully, based on our conversations with the finance director, you'll have the custody bank in place this month. And then we do have a strategy, which is what we call a 1 to 3, a bit of a longer strategy for your investments that's managed on a total return basis. So like you see in any of your equity portfolios, if you have IRAs, if you have pensions, if you get those reports. So we manage to a total return benchmark of 1 to 3 years, which basically means your portfolio, your average maturity would be about 1.8 years. So you'd have a little bit of long, you have a little bit of short, and then you'd have a little bit of credit and government mixed in. It would still primarily be a government portfolio, so that means treasuries and agency securities, so the highest credit quality with a little bit of credit, so corporate bonds and some of those commercial paper CDs. The mix would depend on, again, what the market does, or where the market is on the day that we're getting ready to buy those securities. And we can talk broad strokes now, but we have a Fed meeting coming up with perhaps another rate movement that's going to change the market a bit. But generally, that's where we're headed with the strategy.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, my question, I guess, is for Joe. What's the oversight for this program?
The current oversight that we have for the program is that PFM has no ability to move any of the funds. PFM meets with the investment committee, which is the town manager, the finance director, and the advisors, and we visit in order to make specific decisions. PFM has recommended that we have a custodian in place so that the funds can be held in that location, and the custodian will only move money if both the town manager and the finance director approve the appropriate transaction.
Thank you. Good.
And just as to dovetail on that, PFM never holds any cash and securities. That's part of being an independent investment advisor. So we never hold any of the town's money. We also never sell securities from our own inventory. So we competitively bid every time we go out to buy a security. We get the best price execution because we're not selling. There's no conflict of interest on our end about selling out of our own security. Furthermore, as a fiduciary, we are subject as a registered investment advisor to the fiduciary standard, which means we always have to do what's in the town's best interest, whether that's in PFM's best interest or not. So we have those in place in addition to, I myself am subject to a code of ethics, an internal code of ethics from PFM, and the town at this time will have to agree on any strategy and transaction recommendations that we make before we will execute them. And we also have an internal compliance process in place.
Thank you.
Councilmember Galeen.
Yes, I'm very pleased to see that you've broken out this investment section of the policy out to be its own individual policy, because it is so important. And historically, the town's been very conservative about how it invests its money, very making sure that we don't lose any money, and we have had losses in the past, especially in the local government investment pool, which is the state pool. Everyone lost at that time, but we tried to diversify, but not to any large extent at all. And I would like to see us continue with non-risky investments, but I am very pleased that you've updated, because it's been several years since we've had an opportunity to get a policy like this in place, and I commend you for it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I do want to reiterate that, again, as with any investments, there's no such thing as no risk, but there's managing risk. And that's really our philosophy, is to manage your risk prudently. And our management is diversifying. So if you can diversify where your risk is coming from, then if something happens, you will always be a bit safe, because you're going to be across the boards diversified into different things.
Thank you. That was a very comprehensive presentation and explanation. Does any other members have questions?
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item 9, which is our unfinished business on 9A. We have the discussion, approval, disapproval that the executive session filing, delivery, and the full prosecution/litigation to enforce the terms of the special warranty deed with a reverter between the Town of Florence and Stephen Smallage dated May 11th, 2015, recorded fee number 2015-031032, the assessor parcel 200-49-0730, specifically the reversion provisions for the real property to automatically reinvest and revert in fee title to the Town of Florence on November 12th, 2017, and notices, filings, certificates, pleadings, correspondence, proceedings, agreements, and other documents as may be necessary or convenient related thereto is approved and authorized. Mr. Chris Salas.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. After the last meeting, I believe there was a discussion to further clarify what permits would be needed in some of those time frames. And so staff took the time to meet with the applicant, Mr. Smallage, at the establishment. And present was the building official, our permit specialist, and myself. We went over what we saw as everything that was being described in his scope of work, understanding that there is not an active building permit on the project now. We walked through it, and he described what improvements would be necessary, after which, and it was approximately an hour's worth of discussion on there and some of the nuances of what would require a permit, what would require documentation, and also present was actually Mr. Ron Escott, the proposed electrician for the project. After which, we have developed an entire scope of work here that Mr. Smallage has no protest to. He's initialed all the individual pieces on there. We've gone through and discussed the electrical upgrades, the necessary permits, structural repair to the north wall, structural repairs to the rafter surrounding the skylight, roof repairs, air conditioning installation, and the addition of a bathroom in the building. So we believe now we have a defined scope of work, or as best as we have right now, without a building application, as well as concurrence from the applicant. So there is nothing left at this point, I think, between staff. The last time there was some discussion, there was some concerns about what approvals still might be necessary, what permits may be necessary, what registrants may be necessary, and this document kind of has further clarified those, at least between the town staff and Mr. Smallage. With that, I don't think I have anything further to support where we're at on this project, but other than an understanding between the applicant and ourselves that there's no disagreement moving forward.
Thank you. Mr. Smallage, would you like to come up as well?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Back here again, but anyway, Chris and I have worked through this. This is the very first time that I've actually had a scope of work to work from on this project. We've gone through it, each one of the items. We've set down a timeline to actually achieve the accomplishment, to get it done. There is nothing extra on the building that needs to be done other than reissuing the permit and me being able to go ahead and work with Chris and do the permits and so forth on the building. 6 months is, or 5.5 months, 6 months is what I'm asking for. Some of the scope of work, I've got down 60 days. It could be done sooner. But then again, Chris also says, make sure I allow enough time for them to get the permit issued, to revise it, to look through it and make, so it's not I apply for the permit today and I get it today. That's not the way it works. But we've gone through this and kind of set down all the timelines and stuff, and I'm in agreement with him. There's no hidden agenda in this that he and I have agreed to. It just lays up to the council, whether you'll let me move forward on this building or not. I mean, I don't want to hash over the old problems in it. It's not necessary. But I'm here to keep the building.
So I'm understanding you had some really positive conversations with
Oh,
Chris?
yes, yeah. Chris is definitely, I would say, an asset. A lot's easier to work with, more personable, definitely more personable. No, no hesitation to ask him for a question or, whatever. I'm just comfortable with him completely. And the scope of the work is not, it's always an issue when you do something, if you bring in your help, that you appropriate, do a certain amount of work. If someone falls off a scaffold and they break a hip and they can't come and do the work, or the air conditioning guys had a, issue in his family, there's always a problem in all of this. So days, minutes, times, I wouldn't say that you could actually hold it to a day in a minute, because there's always problems in life. Hopefully, I don't foresee anything. If something happens to me, you get it back anyway. Then you could do it without you want to. But the timeline in the work is definitely doable.
Okay. Council, would you like to, do you have any questions?
Yes, I just want to make it real clear. You say that, what's on that list looks okay to you and all that, and that there might, somebody might get hurt or sick or whatever, might hold it up. But I just want it to be very crystal clear that you will have it up to occupancy code. Let's say down the road, as they get into the construction itself, there may be another problem or something, whatever you want to refer to it as. Another situation might come up where something's exposed that we didn't know about, and you didn't know about, or anybody know about, that might be required to bring it up to commercial code, occupancy. And that's really the bottom line. We want to make sure at the end of this extension, if we do this, that you're agreeing to bring it up to an occupancy rating.
Do you have this paper in front of you?
Pardon me?
Do you have this paper in front of you?
No, I do
Things
not.
that I have to do to the building?
No, no, I do not.
Well, we done a real thorough walkthrough of the building.
Right, I know that. I was told that. What I'm saying, the bottom line is, we're going to give you this 6 months if we give it to you. I'm not saying we're going to give it to you. I'm just saying if we do, you will have it, you will agree to bring it up to where it's up to occupancy standards, correct? That's all I'm saying. No matter, who gets sick, no matter what you run into, you're agreeing. That's the bottom line. That's where the buck stops. Because, we've had so many projects that have, people come in and accuse of the town of causing the problems, and then it always turns out that, well, it doesn't always, but I haven't seen where we've caused anybody to hold up on their projects yet, But anyway, I just want to make sure that you understand that perfectly clear.
Yes, sir.
Go that route.
And just let me add that contrary to popular belief, this council and our staff work hard to keep Main Street vibrant, as well as to bring businesses in. And my suggestion to you is that if you think you're going to foresee some issues with some of your contractors or workers, that you have a backup plan.
Yes.
That's crucial, because I think we've been more than lenient and fair with you. We have always had a competent professional staff. I don't care who has come and gone. They have always been professional and competent, and they have tried to work with everyone that has come into their office. So I think now the ball will be in your court if indeed we grant an extension, because that's what we're here for. We are trying to grow our town, so we are not anti-business as people try to say. So I just wanted you to be aware of that, and we are very proud of our staff, even those that have left us, that they are very competent and they have always done their job, so.
Well, I appreciate that, but I'm also very positive in Florence. You can't come into any of my shops on Main Street and me not talk very highly of Florence. I do a vast amount of things behind the scenes that no one knows about. I'm definitely Florence all the way.
Thank you, we appreciate that.
Any other members of council? Okay. So with that, we need a motion to approve or disapprove extending the
I'll go ahead. I'll make the motion that we approve the extension and give Mr. Smallage until May the 11th, 2018 to complete the building on Main Street, as well as following the guidelines in the document that you and Chris have worked out.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much, council, mayor, vice mayor. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make us proud.
Item 10 is our consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda will be handled by a single vote as part of the consent agenda unless a council member or a member of the public objects at the time the agenda item is called. Approval of the initial term extension of the lease between the Town of Florence and the Florence Mosaic Church of the Nazarene Incorporated, doing business as the Florence Fudge Company, for Silver King Marketplace Suite 101. Item B is the approval of the initial term extension of the lease between the Town of Florence and Brittany Padilla for Silver King Marketplace Suite 201. Approval of the initial term extension of the lease between the Town of Florence and Shannon Greer for Silver King Marketplace Suite 202. Approval of accepting the Register of Demand ending September 30th, 2017 in the amount of $1,693,684.43. Is there any member of the public or council that would like any item removed? With that, we'd need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, items A, B, C, and D.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, and the motion carries. Item 11, new business. Resolution 1633-17, which is the discussion, approval, disapproval of a resolution of the Town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, rescinding the 2010 budget and fiscal policies and adopting a Town of Florence investment policy effective December 6th, 2017.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. I'm grateful for this opportunity to come and present to you this evening a little bit about what my staff and I and other staff members have been working on. First off, I'm grateful that we have policies in place. Many municipalities have no policies to guide the decisions. And I was grateful for the opportunity to review what we've been doing now to see how we may want to consider changing in order to be more successful in the future. Earlier in the meeting, we had a presentation from Paulina Wu talking about the investment policy. I'm very pleased about the direction we're going, and I believe that we'll be able to make a better rate of return on what we've had in the past, and be able to provide the safety, security, and liquidity that our citizens expect from their investments. This evening, as we've discussed a little bit, the budget and fiscal policy, all 29 pages of it, covers a variety of topics. And it is my number one priority to talk about the investment policy because I believe that there's some advantages to making this update now that we've discussed. At the same time, I was reviewing the budget and fiscal policy, and there's some areas that we can do a little better. And so it is my request or my recommendation this evening that the council consider rescinding the entire budget and fiscal policy and consider adopting a new investment policy in order to guide the investments that are available to the town of Florence.
Okay, council, do you have any questions? I really like the direction that you're going and how you're leading this forward. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for your support and for the guidance that you give to myself and my staff during your council meetings and budget work sessions.
Okay, with that, we need a motion, please.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution number 1633-17, a resolution of the Town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, deleting the 2010 budget and fiscal policies effective September 15, 2010, and adopting a Town of Florence investment policy effective December 6, 2017.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item B is resolution number 1648-17. This is the discussion, approval, and disapproval of a resolution of the Town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, approving the final plat for Mail Ranch Unit 55 and authorizing execution by the town manager of supporting documents. Mr. Chris Salas.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. Tonight, we are asking for the approval of the final plat of Unit 55. Unit 55 consists of 212 single-family residential lots proposed for this 54.47 acre subdivision. The resulting density for this particular unit will be 3.89 dwelling units per acre, and this is under the allowable 4.0 for this development, for the entire Merrill Ranch development. Neighborhood streets in this unit are designed and constructed with a 42-foot wide right-of-way. The 42-foot right-of-way will be utilized for the subdivision to ensure ADA compliance, which includes 5-foot sidewalks. The entry right-of-way for Candlewood Way of Constitution Way and Coronado Drive and Colonial Way off National Way are 52 feet wide. The preliminary plat for Unit 55 was approved by Planning and Zoning Commission on October 11, 2017. With that, are there any questions?
Well, I have, I guess, a lot of questions about this, but I was hoping that we would have a work session that we could sit down and go through all this stuff about the two PUDs that are involved. Just unclear to me. I was looking at one of the PUDs today, and that we've gone up to 4.0 dwellings per unit. And the PUD I looked at showed it was still 3.5, so I'm still not clear all this.
Councilmember Anderson, Vice Mayor and Mayor, Council Member, my name is Jared Baxter. I'm the engineer on the project for Pulte, Anthem and Merrill Ranch Unit 55. The 4.0 is density that was part of the Merrill Ranch PUD, which is a separate PUD from the Anthem and Merrill Ranch PUD. That PUD was approved in June of 2007, and that's where the 4.0 comes from.
Well, maybe I was looking at the wrong sheet, but the sheet I looked at showed this section, and it was called Section 9, I think, and it showed 3.5.
Chris Salas, can I have you interject here?
I do not have copies of the PU to directly answer that question.
Councilmember Anderson, do you have a copy with you?
No. I just got a copy today. But,
So if I'm understanding correctly, what I'm hearing is that it's under the 4.0, but you're referencing a PUD that you saw that had 3.0 listed as the minimum, is that correct?
3.5.
3.5. Okay.
Madam Mayor, 3.5 is a density that is currently used in Anthem at Merrill Ranch. And as part of the PUD of Anthem at Merrill Ranch, it is a 3.5 overall density for Anthem at Merrill Ranch. I'm not sure where Councilmember Anderson may be wrong one way or the other, but I know that the R1 zoning in Merrill Ranch PUD that was approved in 2007 allows for a 4.0 density, overall density for the development. Now, Merrill Ranch PUD is similar to an Anthem PUD. It's an overall density. There'll be some subdivisions that are higher than that density. There'll be some subdivisions that are lower than that density, depending on the open space that it abuts that development itself. It's an overall density for the entire development. So the 3.8 that is being presented here in Anthem, or in Merrill Ranch Unit 55 falls below the 4.0. But again, it will count against the overall density of 4.0 for the entire Merrill Ranch development.
Okay.
The other question that I have on this is that this PUD is the PUD that was actually negotiated and signed by Southwest Property. The other PUD is there, was signed by Pulte and negotiated by Pulte, and that PUD calls out for the Merrill Ranch HOA. This one doesn't call out for an HOA, so it's not clear to me if this unit can be included in the HOA.
I can answer that question, council members. In the 2007 PUD amendment that Harrison Merrill did as part of the Merrill Ranch development that was approved in June of 2007, let me get to that section here real quick. In Section 8, it calls for the maintenance of the streets and the cross sections there. Just reading directly from that approved PUD, which is a 2007 PUD, it calls out that streets will be constructed in accordance with design standards established by the town on this PUD and will be maintained by the Merrill Ranch Maintenance Corporation or a village association associated within the Merrill Ranch development. The trails and private common areas to be maintained by the Merrill Ranch Maintenance Corporation or a village association located with Merrill Ranch development. Clearly, it calls out a type of PUD or type of HOA. It's not saying HOA, but it's calling out a maintenance to be maintained by a homeowners association, which we would call a Merrill Ranch Maintenance Corporation or a village association.
But that's the way I read that. That's the one for Southwest Property.
No, that is a 2007 PUD. That was an overall PUD for the Merrill Ranch development. The PUD amendment that you keep referring to, Councilman Anderson, was for a small portion of Merrill Ranch, and all it pertained to was rezoning uses of the original 2007 PUD. It was not presented or accepted as a replacement to the 2007 PUD. It was presented and written as an amendment for a small portion of area that's part of the Merrill Ranch PUD.
Well, you sort of convinced me. There's two PUDs. I guess I'd like to have a legal
You
reading
have, well,
from our.
I know staff has the PUDs, and I'm familiar that they have presented those PUDs to you. Now,
Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
did you just ask to go into executive session for legal advice?
No, I'd like to hear from the town manager.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misheard you.
Well, no, what I would like to have is a work session. But, that we can get this all resolved, really. If that's an executive session, I would rather for it to be an open session, because I would like to have, a Pulte there, because I'm not at all convinced that I'm right, but I'm not at all convinced that I'm wrong on this issue.
Okay.
Well,
Mr. Billingsley, hang on one moment, Councilmember Hawkins.
Madam Mayor, members of council, if you recall 2 meetings ago, we had a very similar conversation. We're here tonight to approve 2 final plats, if I recall, one for Unit 55 and Unit 60, that are specifically the engineering documents and creating lots. They don't really have much to do at this point with the PUD or HOAs. HOA requirements is part of the covenants and restrictions by the subdivision. The town is not involved at all. We have a standing development agreement with Pulte with respect to this process. We have approved zoning. In addition, we have a pre-plat and now are going to final plot under our own guidelines to create these lots and approve this engineering. So the discussion of specifically the creation of an HOA or the HOA or representation, in my opinion, is not relevant to this discussion. This is to follow our process, create lots, and approve engineering for a subdivision. One of the things, and I mentioned this to Chris earlier, one of the portions of our review, when we review a final plat, and obviously before that a pre-plat, is referring back to those foundational documents, including overall density, and making sure that the portion of the subdivision that is to be platted meets those overall density requirements per the zoning, in this case, the overlay, which is the planned unit development for this. So that's kind of where we're at. We're discussing things that aren't directly related to the approval on the agenda this evening.
Thank you.
Well,
Councilmember Hawkins?
if I'm not mistaken, or maybe got it wrong, but I didn't think the town had any say-so one way or the other on an HOA itself. I thought that was between the developer and
That's correct.
the homeowners or whatever. Maybe I understood wrong, but my understanding was that we don't have any say-so on the homeowners association.
You understood correctly.
Okay, well, so I'm wondering does that, I mean, for John, I mean, rather than having a work session, if that was, I don't see why have a work session if we don't have any say-so on the,
Well, I think we have a say-so because it's in the PUD.
PUD is a zoning document. It's a zoning overlay. There are a lot of things included in a PUD because the developer as well as the town wants to have a fairly tight definition on the type of development that's planned to occur to make sure that property values stay up or that quality of development does not go down. But those are not legal requirements regarding specifics to the development, height of lights or width of pavement. They're suggestions, but the legal requirements in a zoning document are densities, floor area ratio, lot coverage, density, amount of right-of-way that needs to be dedicated. Those types of things are the legal requirements of a zoning document. These other things and design standards take place as part of the engineering design. So for example, the lighting that is approved on streets, the size of the lots, the setback requirements on those lots, those are part of a zoning document and the legal requirements of a zoning document.
Well, I agree with that, but when we talk about lights, it specifies the type of lights that are being installed, the size of those lights. That's not a guideline, it's a standard. And when I talked to you about that last, you said, no, you couldn't enforce that. So I'm just...
Absolutely, that's not zoning. Height of a light is not zoning.
Well, it calls out in the PUD, that's the standard. So you're saying we cannot enforce the standards that are in the PUD?
That's not the intent of a zoning document, and I don't believe it is listed specifically as standards for the development recommendations for design.
Well,
and Clifford.
Mayor, members of council, if I just may intercede, from what, I don't have the document that Councilman Anderson is looking at. He's making some references to more than one document, I think, but for the agenda item tonight, we have to be careful that we stay within the topic of what is agendized. And from what I can tell, for the final plats, you are correct that we have PUDs that control the uses overall with what we have here. But what is happening tonight is not a discussion of the terms of the PUD, but the engineering documents that set forth the lots. So, I mean, to stay on our agenda topic, this is an administrative procedure to approve the engineering documents that our town engineer has reviewed. So, you know, we can't, right or wrong, we can't have a discussion on work sessions or other issues in the PUD on this agenda item. We only have the engineering document in front of us for the final plat for the council to consider based upon the recommendation of our town engineer and those professional guidelines.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution number 1648-17, a resolution of the town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, approving the final plat for Merrill Ranch Unit 55 and authorizing execution by the town manager of supporting documents.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Item C is resolution number 1649-17, which is the discussion, approval, disapproval of a resolution of the town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, approving the final plat for Anthem at Merrill Ranch, Unit 60, and authorizing execution by the town manager of the supporting documents. Chris Ellis.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. Very similar to the last project here, Unit 60 and Unit 55. There are 90 single-family residential lots proposed for this 30.94 acre subdivision. The resultant density is 2.9, and the PUD conformance to the 3.5 dwelling units per acre for AMR, not MR, Anthem at Merrill Ranch this time. Neighborhood streets, very similar, once again, 42-foot wide right-of-way. This is to ensure ADA compliant sidewalks throughout the subdivision. The preliminary plat for AMR Unit 60 was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission on October 11, 2017 as well.
Okay, thank you very much. There's no questions. Is there any questions?
Just a quick clarification, this unit is actually in Sun City as opposed to Parkside, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. It may be labeled incorrectly, but yes, it is in Sun City portion of the development. It'd be north of Unit 54, Franklin Road, Sun City Boulevard intersection, basically.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Mr. Billingsley.
And to be completely clear, what Chris said is absolutely right. I just checked the official record, and 60 is in Anthem Merrill Ranch, not Merrill Ranch.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no further questions or clarifications, we need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution number 1649-17, a resolution of the town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, approving the final plat for Anthem at Merrill Ranch, Unit 60, and authorizing execution by the town manager of supporting documents.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Item D is resolution number 1650-17, which is the discussion, approval, disapproval of a resolution of the town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, supporting an application for public lands administered by the Bureau of Land Management per the Recreation and Public Purposes Act for expansion of the Poston Butte Preserve. Brian Hughes.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, before you is a resolution simply allowing staff to apply for the public lands adjacent to the current Poston Butte that the town owns through the BLM patent. On the map before you is highlighted in blue is what we currently have, and highlighted in red are the two parcels that we're seeking to apply for. Combined, it's a little over 200 acres, and so that would expand that preserve area to 360 something, I believe. So it would allow us to really move forward with trailheads, parking, things like that to expand that area for recreational use. I do want to remind council that this is the very beginning of the process, and BLM moves very slowly, as they've told me. So by getting this in now, it still may be several years before we get final approval. When they do, some of the things that we might be able to do to help speed up the process with their approval is do some of the environmental studies and cultural resources assessments on our own to kind of speed up that process. So if you approve this application, we will meet with BLM staff and try and speed that up a little bit, but it still may take quite a while. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I do have a question. In the presentation, it was mentioned that there has to be clearance or negotiations with anyone who may be using that land under a BLM lease now. Are there any of those entities?
We believe, they couldn't provide me with any documentation or who the person was at the time, but we believe that there is grazing on the east parcel. So they would have to be given time to relocate and find a new grazing area. So unless they don't object, then we may be able to move forward quickly.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes, I have a question about the parking and the access off of Hunt Highway. I know we got, I think we approved permission to work with the railroad to use the underpass?
Correct.
Okay, how are we going to get parking? Is that underpass wide enough for cars to go through?
Cars, Councilmember Anderson, cannot go through the underpass, but they can park on the, off the highway, Hunt Highway side and walk through the underpass. So for right now, I think our parking situation is okay, but ultimately if we do expand this preserve area, we will need additional parking, which is some of the things that you can see underneath the document, just some conceptual ideas that we've thrown out there. So there's still work to do, but it all depends on starting this process with BLM right now.
Who owns the land where the parking is?
Right now, I believe that's Southwest Value Partners, so we've had some discussions with them too about possibly working on that small area.
The existing parking, the town and the
Existing
railroad
parking
owns.
is, yeah, the railroad, yeah.
Now, Mr. Hughes, in looking at this, I do see the future freeway corridor that we were just referencing. Now, would that go all the way straight back almost to the Florence Gardens area?
I'm sorry, the freeway or
The future freeway corridor?
It would go to the west of Florence Gardens area.
And the only reason I'm bringing that up is this past weekend, just some residents had mentioned they only have one way in and out of their community. So if there was ever something that happened on that road, so this is good future planning, just to look at giving them an extra access point in and out of their community, as well as meeting the needs of the preserve.
Potentially, yes.
Mr. Billingsley.
I always like to make sure that we're making a connection with a strategic plan. One of the initiatives in the strategic plan has to do with parks, recreation, and public facilities. This was discussed, and then as a follow-up, council actually approved some funding in our most recent budget to pursue this particular process. I don't want to say anything else at this point, but to follow this process. So we're in line with the strategic plan as well as the council budget.
Councilmember Larson.
Sorry if this seems like a silly question, and I apologize for not calling in advance, but I noticed that you bought up to Hunt Highway along 2 sections, but the third you don't. Why, is there a reasoning why we don't take that, where we're not requesting that little chunk there?
Councilmember Larson, that little chunk is privately owned right now, so to the west below that, and we are working to see if there's some way we might be able to negotiate and get that parcel as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. And with that, we need a motion.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 1650-17, resolution of the Town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, supporting an application for public lands administered by the Bureau of Land Management per the Recreation and Public Purposes Act for expansion of the Poston Butte Preserve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you.
Item E is our ordinance number 658-17. This is the first reading of an ordinance of the Town of Florence, Pinal County, Arizona, amending Title 11 of the Town Code entitled Business Regulations by deleting said chapters 110, 111, 113, and 114 in their entirety and replacing with a new chapter 110 Licenses, Taxation, and Miscellaneous Business Regulations. Ms. Lisa Garcia.
Mayor and members of council, the last time that we looked at amending the business license section of the code was September 7th, 2004. We're excited to bring this update to council. It goes in and streamlines the process, making it easier for staff as well as the business community to get a license and make it really easier to understand the business license process. It uses current terminology and the philosophies of the town, as well as reflects on the current practices of the clerk's office. The code simplifies the process while retaining the legal requirements. So you'll see that it's worded very easy, but it still requires that they have the proper zoning before they are allowed to obtain a business license. That means that it will go down to the Community Development Department, or Development Services, to be able to get that. The other things that exciting about our code is we've worked with the police department to find out what is the best way to be able to handle people who go door to door soliciting, and what do we want to do. And the town of Florence, underneath this new amended code, along with the suggestions of the police chief, we are requiring solicitors to have picture IDs. So rather than having a company come in and get one single license and put 20 people on the street, each person that is part of the helpers that are soliciting door to door are required to go through a background check as well as obtain a picture ID so that when the police department are checking to see if they are proper to be going door to door, they will have that with them. It will also have an expiration date and show the exact dates they're allowed to solicit within the town of Florence. I realize there are many HOAs that already have signs out that say that they are not allowed to solicit, and this code does state that if you have a sign out that you're not allowed to solicit, or if the HOA does not allow solicitation, that these temporary vendors are not allowed to go in those areas. So the other thing that is very business friendly is that our code does allow for prorating. So a standard business license costs $50 per year, but if you come in after 6 months, then it would cost $25 for the remainder of the year. If you come in December to get a brand new business license, then what we would do is we would take your application in December and we would issue it out for 13 months rather than 12 months. And so we're really trying to streamline the process, be business friendly, and make sure that we're doing everything possible to get people to file their business license timely. The other thing we're excited about is that we have done fillable forms that are now on the website. And so rather than taking a business license, having to print it out, fax it into us, they can go right in, fill out that, do an electronic signature, and we're working with the component to even pay online to make sure that we can go through and just streamline the process completely. This is our first reading. We'll come back before you one more time, so please feel free to read it. Any questions you have, either call me up over the next 2 weeks, or we'll talk about it at the next meeting. And this will actually go into place. If it is voted in at the next meeting, it will be mid-December, so our new business license will be processed underneath this code. One thing I do want to point out is that we did include all of the previous fees, but we are working with Mr. Knutson to update the town fee schedule, and he'll be bringing that back to you at a future date. And our new fees that we have inside the code are listed as to be determined. And the reason why that is because new fees require to be posted 60 days prior to going into effect. And so we want to make sure that we follow all the rules associated with fees and new fees and upping fees. And so that portion of it will be Mr. Knutson's item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that was our first reading. If anybody has questions, they can see Ms. Garcia.
Well, can I ask questions now?
If you'd like to, yes.
Just a quick question. When we talk about the solicitations or solicitors, does Does this include churches, religious orders?
I'm not sure that churches then solicit, do they go door to door asking you to pay for something, a service that they're selling?
Well, they ask you to, take their literature and, come to their church and stuff like that.
No, that wouldn't fall underneath the business license section. This would be somebody who's going door to door, and we've made it the definition is anyone who is not invited to your home would fall underneath the solicitor. So if you've contacted like Schwann's or some other company and you've asked for them to come sell to you, that is different than someone who's randomly going door to door to sell.
The other question, I've seen some people drop young men off to go door to door to, pass out flyers or something like that. Do these kind of people have to have, each one of those people have an ID and be licensed? I know you said here there's a $10 fee or something like that.
If they are, so every once in a while you'll see somebody come to town and they'll put 20 people out on the streets and they're selling books or they're selling vacuums or something like that. Each one of those people were required to have an ID. The reason why is they're going door to doors. We want to make sure our citizens are protected. So as part of that process, we will do a background check through the police department, and it will actually be the police chief who will inform the clerk's office if we can issue those IDs or not.
If somebody shows up at your house and you have a question whether or not and you ask them for their ID and they don't have one, who do we call?
They're required to show their ID. If you do not have an ID, you can call the police department, but call it on the non-emergency number.
Okay. Good, thank you. That's all my questions.
Just one quick question, since
Yes,
we're on
ma'am.
the solicitation thing. What about Girl Scouts? Those Girl Scouts, since they're coming to your house and they're selling something?
Kristen, if you make the Girl Scouts
want
go
the
away,
Girl
we're
Scouts,
going to have a
that's why.
problem.
Like, I want them to start.
They're under 18.
If someone calls and report them, we will use the code.
You can
just
send them
so
to
you
my
know.
house. I'll take the Girl Scouts.
You can always tell me you invited them.
Leave the Girl Scouts alone. That's
Thank you.
Oh, I do have one last question. It says that the business must obtain a business license no later than 30 days from the date of their opening.
Okay, that is, so we passed out a new section because we had one little trend. We had a couple little, so the new ordinance that you passed out, it says that a business may not open in the town of Florence unless they obtain a business license.
Makes better sense. Thank you.
Okay, and then they may obtain a business license without a certificate of occupancy, though.
Sure.
Because it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be operating, they're just taking care of their paperwork.
Yes. Thank you. That makes sense.
All right, thank you.
Tara, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Lisa, fundraisers, that includes Girl Scouts and football teams, baseball teams, and all of that, but there are also other fundraising events. Do you have an exclusion for that?
There is an exclusion clause located within the code, and let me find it for you, and I can read it to you, or you can read it over the next 2 weeks. And basically, it's the same exclusion that was in our previous code that we dealt with. And so, again, we're trying to be user-friendly, and we're trying to make sure that, so if you go to underneath section 110-30, go to F, and that is exemptions. The only exemptions to the licensing requirements of this section shall be nonprofit educational institutions, fraternal service clubs, bona fide religious organizations, agencies of the federal, state, and local government. 2, nonprofit private clubs where basic membership fees cover the cost of the use of the facilities. 3, fundraisers, projects, nonprofit, and bona fide religious organizations not conducted on a regular basis. 4, rental units of 3 or less in a non-commercial zoning district, sellers of agricultural produce grown within the city limits by seller. Or 6, any hobby craft sales in which the seller is the creator of a non-paid representative of the creator and of which the gross sales of each hobbyist and craftsperson shall not exceed $3,000 in any 12-month period.
Thank you.
Did I understand that right, that the vegetable sellers at our open market, when we have that, don't have to have a license?
The state law states that if it's grown within your city limits, so it would really depend on where it is grown.
All right, thank you. Mr. Billingsley, we're moving into item 12, which is our manager's report.
It's a pretty short manager's report this week, but got some good news to share. Number one, I want to congratulate Victor Grajeda. Many of you probably don't know Victor, but he has been working for our wastewater department for 3 months, and he has already obtained his wastewater collections and his wastewater treatment level 1 certification. So that's pretty impressive. It's a pretty cool thing. Usually it takes about 12 months to make that happen, and he's done it in 3. He'll have to wait a year before he can take his level 2 certifications. Second one, some might see as a underhanded compliment, but article came out in Tucson last week, said Oro Valley was named Arizona's best small city. Of course, I sent this out to the council. The interesting part is, guess who was number 2?
Florence.
The town of Florence. And I'll read an excerpt from that article. I thought it was pretty neat. It says, coming in at number 2 in the state is Florence. Only about 3 of every 4 residents in Florence have graduated from high school, and its median household income is $47,891, compared with $77,770 for Oro Valley. But it's more than offset by other factors that Wallet Hub considers important, including the 10th fastest population growth amongst cities its size nationwide in the past 5 years, and among the lowest cost of living of any Arizona community studied. Its rate of property crime is 6th lowest in the country. So we've improved from 13th to 6th, Chief. Keep up the good work. The next item is we've also received another grant. I'm always happy to come in and talk about grants. We have received a grant from the Bureau of Justice Assistance to get a fiscal year 2017 Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant. So thank you very much to Jennifer for her hard work. The grant amounts to about $2,330 and will pay for 50% of 4 to 5 bulletproof vests for our police department. So thank you for all the hard work. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Jennifer, you've run with this grant challenge, haven't you? I'm very proud, so thank you very much for all your hard work. Okay, so does any member of council have any questions about the department reports, which is item 13? Excellent. We have our call to the public. Any members of the public at this time?
That will be Mark.
Thank you. And call to the council for current events only. Councilmember Larson.
So this last couple of weeks, I felt like this has been the most involved our community has been with the town, at least from my experience, and I can't say how proud I am with everyone bringing their talents to the table and making better things happen around Florence. We had the Make a Difference Day that was, in my eyes, a blooming success. It was amazing to see people from all around the region come together to beautify Florence. So I was very proud to be a part of that and proud of all the differences that were made that day. Then we also had the Pony Express, which we had a huge turnout for. My kids loved giving their little cards to the people, so that was great. And then Karen thankfully invited also to the fire truck restoration kickoff at the museum. Once again, the partnerships that were made there and the great things they're doing is just amazing. And to be a part of that is fantastic and something we should definitely be praising and bringing light to. Also the Fright Fest, I said that was the highlight of our Halloween because they got the most amount of candy in the shortest amount of time. So that makes for a successful event, right? Definitely want to keep that going. I thought that was fantastic. Kids really appreciated it. So It's fun to see everyone dressed up. So you guys have kept us busy, and now we get a little bit of a break, and then we're off to Thanksgiving and the holidays. So thank you, everyone, for this past couple weeks. It's been really great. Let's keep that positive energy going and continue doing our thing. So that's all I've got.
Councilmember Wall?
I think the event at the museum on Saturday was pretty exciting because we learned that the Ford fire truck that is currently over at the prison is very close to being parade ready. And the plan is to enter that truck in the Christmas parade. So we're excited about that. On Friday night, this last week has been extremely busy. We had the employee Halloween gathering during the day on Friday, and I saw some spectacular costumes, including those of our town manager and deputy town manager, and even our town attorney was Batman. And also the Community Services Department came out with mariachi costumes, which were pretty exciting also. At Saturday night, I attended the first playoff game of Florence High School, and they beat Blue Ridge, the Yellow Jackets, pretty significantly. It's kind of exciting if you haven't been to any of the high school games. There's so much spirit there to see the cheerleaders, the football players, and the community coming together and seeing friends meeting friends at the games. So if you haven't had a chance to go to one of the games, I would encourage that you do that. And that's all I have.
Councilmember Anderson?
I just want to applaud what all is going on in town. So many things have happened over the last 2 weeks. It's been something almost every day. I know, in our neighborhood, Halloween, I'm glad the town had such a great show up downtown, but I had 300 people at my house. So, it's good that we see this kind of involvement all over our town. And that says something for our town, that people are involved and they're out starting to do things. I guess the soccer and the football leagues and all that's getting ready to start up. So we want to encourage people to sign up for all these events that are going on. That Parks and Rec has scheduled for us. I just want to, again, thank the staff for all the stuff that they do from us. We just don't thank you guys enough, but appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilmember Galeen?
Yes, I have 3 items. The first is I'm very glad every time Pulte comes before us to open up a new unit because it means progress for the town of Florence, more citizens, more census, more money for the town of Florence. So I'm sorry that he left because I wanted to tell them how much we appreciate what they have done for the town of Florence and the progress that we're making. The second thing is, again, I have already spoken to Brent about this and to Brian. I still want to express my displeasure about the artificial flowers in our planters downtown. I think it is beneath the town of Florence to have such a representation of the town itself. We deserve better. I have an issue with the artificial flowers, and I've already talked to Brian about it. I think we can do much better. If you even have to go to what is along Arizona Avenue as you come off of Riggs Road onto there, I believe that we need to make our town look as professional and pleasant as possible, not artificial. The third thing is that I'm on the Historical Advisory Commission, and they have asked me, and I will say this is their request, is to implore the town council when hiring planners to please pay a competitive salary. They are very emotional and also interested that we have professional people come into the town as planners, and they want to ensure that they get paid appropriately. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hawkins.
Well, the last part of her statement kind of pertains to what I've got this evening. Lately, in the paper, there's been articles and letters to the editor, once again, accusing the town of being incompetent. We're supposedly in turmoil over at the Development Services Department, and we no longer have a planning department, and it sounds like we're in total chaos, and that's the furthest thing from the truth. I wish these people, before they make these kind of accusations, would come talk to one of the council members, come talk to staff. I don't know where they come off with accusations of we're acting unprofessional or being condescending to the public, are some of the statements they've made. It just, you know, they're the ones that claim that they're wanting the town to move forward, and yet they're the ones doing more damage to us publicity-wise, when people are looking to come here to invest, and they see that we've got people on some of our commissions that are falsely accusing the town of doing, operating improperly, not being professional, leaving positions open. And like, we've still got a planning department. We did not do away with our planning department. We still have planners. We hire a temporary planner to cover the time until we get us another permanent planner. But a town this size, people need to realize people will come here. Sometimes it's a stepping stone because we are a small community, but we're a very professional small community. We win awards all the time for how good our Development Services Department is, how well our planning has been in the past. It's just really sad that people, I don't know why they make this stuff up, but if they want the facts, we're open. All our records are open. Anybody's available to talk to them. We need, if people are serious about bringing downtown alive again, which there are new businesses opening. You won't hear that from these handful of people, but this has got to stop. And I hope that they can restrain from putting stuff in the paper falsely and get on board on promoting the town. Like I say, anybody that has a question on any department, any subject at all, get a hold of one of your councilmen. This is what you elected us for. We'll find out, is that true or not true? But these false accusations have to stop. I mean, my God, we're picked the second best town to live in Arizona. I mean, how good can we get? And you got these handful of naysayers that just keep beating us down, or trying to, but we're not going to let them get us down. We're going to keep moving forward, and we've got some of I know our staff could go anywhere in the state tomorrow and get a job. They're that good. I mean, we've got top quality people here, and I want the public to know that. I mean, we're very lucky to have the staff we have for a town our size. I mean, we should just be jumping up and down with joy, not putting them down and ridiculing them, that's just so bad. It just disappoints me to no end. And I don't understand why these people want to serve the town on our commissions if they're going to feel that way. I don't understand that. Anyway, that's and I just want to let people know that there's so many positive things going on. I mean, they just close their eyes to it apparently, and they have an agenda or something. That's all I have. I'm sorry, but I just had to get that out there because it just every week it just keeps going on in the paper, and it's just wrong. And it's not just our paper, it goes into the Dispatch. You know, I had a guy from Tucson call me today. Hey, I hear you guys don't have a planning department anymore. You're in turmoil. I said, what? He said, yeah, I saw that on the internet. And I said, well, that's not true. But anyway, that's what I'm saying. You know, this has got to stop, I hope.
Madam Mayor,
Thank you.
I'd like to applaud Mr. Hawkins.
So would I. Very well said.
Ditto. Thank you, Bill. Very well said. Vice Mayor Woolridge.
I think it's really all been said tonight. I agree with everyone, and especially with Bill. You just have to remember that our boards and commissions are a part of the town, so when you bash the town, you're actually bashing yourself as well. I believe in that old saying, if you don't have anything good to say, it's best not to say anything. My grandfather always used to say, you can catch more flies with honey. So let's try to remember that. Let's be nice and kind to one another, because we're all here to improve the town of Florence, because we all live here.
Very well said as well. I've always said, if you see something that you perceive to be an issue, talk about it. Go to the person that you can talk to get firsthand information about. And either your perspective will change because you'll have the information that you need, or you'll find out, you know, this isn't what I want, and, you know, you'll work with a group to make a difference. We're doing a lot of positive things in the town of Florence, and you know, it's even evident when the first two ladies came out for the presentation for the Florence Lifestyle Group. This is a group that's coming together that really synergizes well with our direction that we're going as a council through our strategic plan. So let's continue to put the positive out there in Florence and keep all of the great events happening. Our next event is going to be the Junior Parada. So I hope you guys will come on out for the parade, the rodeo, and we're also going to have Ashley Wineland come and sing, and we'll have a dance on Main Street. So it's going to be amazing. We are going to be adjourning for a second executive session of the evening, and we will come back and adjourn afterwards. With that, we need a motion.
Make a motion, we adjourn to executive session.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.